Hey there, it's Carrie Kenner, and welcome to my weekly vlog. Oh, I'm so excited for today's vlog because I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things in the universe, which is babies. So, I have been watching this Netflix documentary series called Babies, about babies. It came out in 2020, and I don't know how I missed it. I think there's two seasons and maybe 8 episodes each, and they're in kind of a weird order, but oh my God. This series is all about research being done on babies and what they know, babies' intelligence, their development, what they're able to do. And their premise is that babies are not blobs and they know way more than we think they know. And they are amazing learners. Now, I already knew that. I've known that since the beginning of time, since my time at least. In fact, it's one of the things that I've always talked about with expectant parents and my clients is like your baby before it's even born is learning so many things. It knows so much. And when it comes out, it is like a sponge. And for those of you, gosh, I think it was maybe my first vlog episode where I talk about how we learn and how our families are the soup pot that we get cooked in. And that's where we learn all these things. This takes it way back, way deeper, way more intrinsic than what even families do and the influence families have on our development. So, gosh, where do I even begin? Let me just start with they're doing research to show some of the things that babies know that people didn't think they knew, and they're kind of being able to prove it with these crazy experiments that they do with babies. We're talking about like 1 month old, 3 month old, 6 month old babies. Some of the babies are older, but most of the research is done on really young babies. And you might be wondering, how do they do research? Babies can't say, oh, I know that. I understand that. I don't even freaking have language yet. They do it with puppet shows. Like puppet shows are a big thing in this research because babies are so visual and you can tell where babies' eyes are. So it has to do with where their eyes are going and how long they focus on a thing, and then also facial expressions and body language. So they're doing what all babies do. The scientists are doing what babies do, which is reading a gazillion things instead of listening to words. And by the way, all adults would be way better communicators if we did that too. So they're watching the baby's facial expressions, their body movements, how long their eyes are resting on a particular object, which objects they follow or not. And like one of the coolest things was they were showing that babies understand gravity long before they have an intellectual understanding of gravity. And by that, I mean that babies know that things drop before they have learned that things drop. So, any of you who are parents that have had a baby that's been sitting at a table and they drop their toy or their food or whatever on the floor. And what do? You pick it up, you hand it back to them. Ha, they drop it again. Oh, this is a fun game. Many people, many parents are told, oh, that's how babies learn about gravity. Wrong. Babies already knew about gravity. Really, it's just a game to annoy you. It is a fun game for the baby. So, what they did in this puppet show is they showed these objects going down, come across the screen and go down, come across the screen and go down, and they watched the baby's response to it. The babies would follow the things with their eyes, follow the things, and after a while, the baby would be like, boring, and they kind of stopped following the thing with their eyes. Then they had the object float, and the babies would be like, you could tell by all the little teeny muscle movements that we have in our faces that they were just like, what the fuck? They were like, and they would look a little bit disconcerted. Not just like, oh, this is interesting. That's fun. No, it was a look of, that ain't right. Something is wrong here. And sometimes they would even get upset, like, Mom, what's going on here? Because it's not right. And they knew it. So this is a way of showing that babies know because they know when things aren't okay, aren't the norm, aren't right. Okay, so that was just one of the really cool experiments. Now, one of the things, so I spent years kind of immersing myself in an understanding of prenatal psychology. So this is the psychology of babies before they're born. There's even preconception psychology, which, as you can imagine, a lot of people poo-poo, but I was really studying really into prenatal psychology and just kind of the ecosphere of the gestating baby. I learned an incredible amount about the process from fertilization to cell division to implantation of the blastocyst, which is the clump of cells that will become a baby, cell division, the different stages of cell division, how a clump of cells differentiate into bones and eyes and kidneys and fingers and all those things. It was just an area of interest that I'm fascinated by, and that I really loved being able to infuse that in my work, and to like be sitting with a couple who had a baby that was, to certain weeks of gestation, and say, your baby is able to taste the food that you eat because it flavors your amniotic fluid. And that's getting your baby ready to get used to the flavors of food, the flavor of what's going to be in your breast milk. And when it starts eating solid food, it's going to be accustomed to the flavors of the food that your family eats. You're teaching your baby that now. And that's also the studies they have done in this babies documentary. To know that babies hear, and starting at, what stage of development do babies start to hear? So they're recognizing your voice. But before their hearing is even online, they're feeling your heartbeat. They feel the vibration of your heartbeat. And that is their background, their soundtrack, their entire life for 9 months until they come out. So when they come out, guess what's going to be the most familiar and comforting to them? Laying their head on your chest where they hear that heartbeat, where they hear your voices. Okay, now here's some really cool studies. And this is not from the documentary. This is from research that I learned when I was really getting into prenatal psychology. Babies, okay, again, they do these weird tests with babies, and again, involving the eyes and how long they look at certain things. And also with newborn babies, they do things around sucking. So when babies are content and interested, they suck. If they're distressed, they don't suck, they cry. So they would show newborn babies pictures of their parents, and this is newborn babies. They haven't seen their parents yet in this particular study. They would show the newborn babies pictures of people, a woman, a man, people. And then they would also, and they monitor their reaction. And then they showed them pictures of their parents' faces, who they hadn't seen yet. And the babies would stare longer and suck more, which is a gauge of interest, the faces of their parents, even though they hadn't seen them with their own eyes. Now, my belief is that what we experience as pregnant people, our babies experience. Now, you might be like, yeah, of course, if you are in a loud environment, they hear those sounds. If you are, you just told me that you eat those foods and they get those flavors. And it's like, yes, that's things that the baby can experience. But I also think that babies can see what we see, not with their eyes, but with their energetic bodies. Like, we're all energetic bodies. And we have eyes that see physical things, the cones and the retinas and all those things take these multidimensional things and put it into a form that our brains recognize as these particular things. But there's also an energetic quality to all the functions of our body that are experienced by our babies energetically as well, because they're housed in our energetic body. The little energetic body is housed in our energetic body. Now, some of you may be like, okay, Carrie is off her rocker now. And it's like, maybe. But like I said, I knew things that they're now proving with science long before they proved them with science. And I'm going to talk about how that is in a minute. So when I was pregnant with my last son, I felt tremendously connected energetically, cosmically, psychically to him. We would have conversations. There are people who do this kind of work. They teach parents how to connect psychically with their baby so that they can have these conversations. And I bet there's a ton of parents out there right now who are nodding their head saying, I know exactly what you're talking about. I experienced. No one can talk you out of the fact that you had those experiences. So we are supposed to be energetically connected in those ways. And then after birth, the people who can see auras, the energy that surrounds our bodies, they can see the actual energetic connection that exists between, especially a mother or a person who gestated and gave birth to a baby and that child, that there's an energetic umbilical cord that stays connected for years. And that energetic field surrounds both the parent and the baby. It's protective, it's guiding, it's nurturing, all those good things. So what this kind of leads that I wanted to talk about also is kind of just the sheer magic of it all. And I think about the difference between magic and mystical and faith. Like we attribute those words to things that we don't comprehend, that we can't understand. And those are because either perhaps our brain doesn't have the capacity, more likely we don't use the capacity of our brains to comprehend those things. When a baby is turning into a baby, when it's a clump of cells and it turns into a baby, as I mentioned earlier, these cells, all the cells in this clump, and I use my hand like this when in fact it's, a pinprick size, but it's a clump of 8, 16, 32, like those cells are reproducing they're doubling their quantity every day until they implant, which kind of sends a coded message that now they can start dividing and doing slightly different things. But until then, they're identical. Any one of those cells could be pulled out and start a brand new baby. Okay. There's a process where that clump of cells flattens out and then it curves. So it's a flattened disc. It curves up like a taco. And then along the bottom of the taco starts the spine and the nervous system. And then everything all those cells start to differentiate into their different functions. Also contained within that original clump of cells are the cells that become the placenta and the ones that become the baby. And that's why that implantation into the wall of the uterus is so important, because that tells the cells that implanted, you're going to be the placenta. The rest of you guys, you're going to be the baby, and starts that, again, differentiation. And what is fascinating is that those cells are going to create a body that we recognize as a baby's body, but they're filling up what is an energetic blueprint. So if you've seen like the Matrix or things where they show you the crosshatch 3-dimensional like matrix of something, that's what the body starts as. And then these physical cells proliferate and fill it up and make each part do according to its function. And it's pretty crazy. Like that's some magic. And you don't need faith for it. It's not beyond the capability of the universe, because the universe is doing it all the time, like to the tune of, 300,000-400,000 babies being born into those physical bodies that were created through the magic of energetic composition and turning into physical form. And all this to say that what is magic and perhaps beyond our comprehension doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And this is where the piece about research and evidence comes into play, and where I get really kind of pissed off. Because people say, well, that hasn't been proven, so it doesn't exist. Well, there's a gazillion things that haven't been proven in terms of science. That doesn't mean they don't exist or that they're not happening. We scientists didn't discover black holes or quarks or, the list goes on and on and on. And one of the reasons why is because science is so rudimentary compared to the capacity of things that the universe can do. So we don't have the tools to measure the energetic matrix. There are some people who are able to see that because the way that their brains and beings are tuned, that they have that visual or sensory, probably is a better word, sensory capacity to discern those things. But we don't necessarily have scientific equipment or scientists or mere humans that understand how to do those things. We're not there yet, or we may never get there, but that doesn't dispel their validity. And I was talking with somebody earlier this week about the shortcomings of evidence, and people who base all their decisions only on evidence, you're like looking at a sliver of potential and possibilities in the world. And there's also the systemic shortcomings of research, which is the fact that the only places that are doing research are ones that have an investment in doing that research. And that usually means money. Like, if I do this research, what's in it for me? And if there's nothing in it for me, why am I going to take the time, money, people, all the things to do that research just to prove that a plant can do XYZ or that mushrooms can do these things? If I can't capitalize on those mushrooms, then I'm not going to test them. And that really is what drives a lot of science. And it's really unfortunate. Now, I don't mean to disparage scientists or all the research that's being done out there, because there's some really cool stuff that isn't financially driven, but most is. And there are so many things that have been studied for thousands of years in a different framework, in a non-Western scientific framework. And I'm thinking specifically right now of Chinese medicine or Chinese herbs. Like, there's thousands of years of research not done in our, types of laboratories and things, which might be part of the problem. But to discredit that research because it wasn't done in a certain kind of way is foolish, in my opinion. I'm really going on a diatribe today, aren't I? Oh, well. So, all this to say that babies are not blobs. Our brains, our human capacity is limited by factors that are outside of our human control in this time and place. I don't know exactly why we don't use all of our brains or how we could or what it would take. But I think most people agree that we're told, at least, and we believe, and there are studies that prove that we don't use all the parts of our brain, and perhaps that's where we could comprehend a lot more of these things. And that to hold this space for things outside of your understanding to be as real as the things that are within your understanding, to hold the potential for babies to be friggin' brilliant and to treat them that way, that would be novel. To understand and believe that what we do and how we take care of pregnant people is not just nice or thoughtful or makes them healthier, but is significantly impacting the baby that they're growing. And if that's a girl baby, that baby has the eggs of the baby, of the babies that she may have. So there's like generational impacts that pregnancy have, and of course the way that people then are raised in the container of the family. I sit and think about this stuff for hours, so I might be boring many of you today, but this is the stuff that I'm fascinated with. If you'd like to get a little taste, go watch this documentary on babies. There's some really cute little kids in there. It's also set, most of the families are British, and so if you love British accents like I do, you get to listen to that all the time and hear their funny colloquialisms that I don't know what half of them mean. But I think it's really fascinating. I think it would be really wonderful for all humans to watch this documentary and understand the impact that we have on children and that children have on the world. It'd be great for kids to watch this because they're so close to it. They really, really get those messages. And I guess just my big invitation is we're amazing. Humans are amazing. This world is amazing. The universe is amazing. We'll never understand it, certainly not in our lifetime, but probably not in the existence of humanity because of the way that we humans operate. But just to really have that gratitude and that openness and that see the possibility of everything being real, and have that guide your day and guide your life, because it can be really uplifting when we are otherwise burdened by our daily existence. So, some fun musings from Carrie. I hope you enjoyed some of it, if not all of it. All right. Have a great week. Bye.